Module 6, we're going to talk about reproduction and pregnancy. How does pregnancy happen? This might be a refresher from your biology class, but let's go ahead and explore how the sperm meets the egg. One of the many reasons people choose to have penis and vagina intercourse is to get pregnant. And if you're having penis and vagina intercourse to not get pregnant, that's totally fine too. We'll get to that in a bit. So let's start with exploring how pregnancy happens. Now you might have studied this in biology class, but let's do a quick refresher. When someone has penis and vagina intercourse and the person with the penis ejaculates, they release a whitish fluid called semen. That semen contains millions of sperm cells which can travel up the vaginal canal into the uterus. Now if the person with the uterus happens to be ovulating, then there is an egg cell that's released from the ovaries that travels down the fallopian tubes and hangs out waiting for the sperm cells to come and fertilize it. As those sperm cells, millions of them, swim up to the egg cell, the egg cell then kind of decides, in quotes, because it's not actually making a decision, which sperm cell can enter and fertilize the egg cell. Now, a few things to remember here is that as these sperm cells travel up, they can survive in the vaginal and uterus for up to 5 days. And so that ovulation, if it happens, can happen anywhere within those 5 days and the person can get pregnant. Now, ovulation might happen during the middle of someone's cycle, roughly speaking, around day 14. But if you have a cycle that's irregular or just honestly with natural variation of each person's body, it's not always exactly on a certain day. So especially if you're using an app to track when ovulation happens, it can be quite varied of which exact day the egg was released and might get fertilized. Now let's say that a sperm cell enters the egg cell and the egg cell gets fertilized. It rolls into the uterus and gets implanted into the uterine wall. And when it gets implanted into the uterine wall, the cells begin to multiply and it turns into a fetus over the next few weeks, months, and usually a period of 9 months. After those 9 months are finished, the fetus is fully grown and the person might get a delivery either through their vaginal canal or through a surgery called a cesarean, where the uterus is cut open and the fetus is removed and becomes a baby. Now, there are some cases where someone might get pregnant and not want to go through with the pregnancy, either because it was unwanted or accidental, or there can be many reasons why that might happen. In that case, a person can choose to go through an abortion. When someone has a pregnancy, which is basically the sperm cell has fertilized the egg cell, the sooner they choose to get the abortion, the easier it can be for that person to go through with it. There are multiple methods. The two main methods to remember is the medical abortion, which is if it's really early stages in the pregnancy, you just have to take a couple of pills and then the cells which were forming are released out through the vaginal canal. But if it is a slightly later stage or if there are other complications involved, a doctor might choose to do a surgical abortion, which would involve some level of surgery. Abortions are totally normal and have no lasting long-term side effects. Even if someone's had an abortion, they can still get pregnant later if they choose to. Now, a lot of people have penis and vagina intercourse for other reasons than pregnancy. And so if you're having penis and vagina intercourse or any type of sex where semen or the fluids from the penis are coming in contact with the vaginal canal, then you might want to think about ways to prevent pregnancy from happening. And so the key thing to remember is that when fluids are coming in contact, so this could include not just penis and vagina intercourse, but let's say someone has just given someone a hand job or stimulated someone with their hands and then has fluids from the penis on their hands which are then being inserted into the vaginal canal. If there's any fluid exchange happening in that way, that can also cause pregnancy. So the first method you can use to prevent pregnancy is a barrier method. So making sure those fluids are not coming in contact at all. So that could mean not engaging in activity where those fluids come in contact, but it could also mean using a barrier like a condom, or a condom which goes on a penis, or a condom which goes inside the vaginal canal. You can also use other methods like hormonal methods, which prevent the egg from being released from the ovaries. And so there's a few different hormonal methods available out there. The most common one is the daily birth control pill. So this is a pill which a doctor can prescribe to you, which you can take at the same time every single day, and it regulates your hormonal cycle such that ovulation will not take place. Similarly, there are other methods like an IUD. An IUD is a little T-shaped instrument which is inserted by a doctor inside the uterus. And this can work in a couple of ways depending on the type of IUD you get. There's a copper IUD which makes it impossible for sperm to swim around, or a hormonal IUD which makes it difficult for ovulation to happen, or other hormonal methods. There's a patch you can use, there's an injection you can get every few months. Honestly, the type of birth control that works for you is really dependent on your body and your needs given your stage in life. So would encourage you to speak with a doctor, because all of these methods require a prescription, generally speaking. And as we think about more permanent methods, you can also think about surgical methods to prevent pregnancy. So one method for the person with a uterus is to have their uterus removed. The procedure is called a hysterectomy, or to have their tubes tied to prevent the egg from reaching the uterus in the first place. And if someone has a penis and testes, then they can also get a vasectomy, where their sperm ducts are tied so that the sperm is not going from the testes into the penis. And so those are relatively more permanent methods, and all of these methods generally are used before intercourse happens. Now let us say someone has already had intercourse and now they want to prevent pregnancy from happening. For some reason they were in a situation where sperm was released directly into the vaginal canal and there is risk of pregnancy present. Then you can choose to take, there's two methods available. One is the I-pill. I-pill is actually the over-the-counter name very commonly used. So if you go to a chemist shop, especially in India, you can ask for an I-pill and the chemist will know what you're talking about. But it's the emergency contraceptive pill, or the morning after pill. Those are other common names for this medicine. It's a pill that you take, and you have to take it within 24 to 72 hours for it to work. The earlier you take it, the better it works, and it prevents a few things from happening. It prevents the, if the sperm and the egg have met, it prevents that from getting implanted in the uterus. It might prevent ovulation from happening, and it might also prevent the sperm from swimming around. Basically makes the uterus not a hospitable place for pregnancy to occur. Now, the I-pill is the most common method. Some people also consider inserting a copper IUD. That would require you to go to a doctor, and if you are inserting the copper IUD, then that can also prevent pregnancy from happening once sperm has already entered the vaginal canal. Two common methods that people talk about are the pull-out method and the tracking dates or calendar method. Now, while both these methods are really commonly used, they tend to be a little bit less reliable than all of the other hormonal and barrier methods I've mentioned so far. However, if you have no other options, using these is way better than using nothing at all if you're trying to prevent getting pregnant. So let's start with the pull-out method, or in technical terms, coitus interruptus. So basically this involves when someone's having penis and vagina intercourse, right before the person with the penis ejaculates, they pull out of the vaginal canal and ejaculate outside or elsewhere. What this does is, this reduces the risk of semen from entering the vaginal canal and sperm swimming up the vaginal canal. However, about 1 out of 5 times, or about 20% of the time, this method fails, and you can decide for yourself whether you're okay with that level of risk. Now, the reason this tends to fail is two things. Firstly, the person with the penis might make a mistake, which is totally normal. Sometimes our bodies do things which are different from what we want them to do. And so if the person accidentally ejaculates inside the vaginal canal, then that can increase the risk of pregnancy. The second reason is there is a fluid that's released out of the penis before ejaculation, and that fluid is not the ejaculate fluid, which is whitish in color. It is more transparent in color, and it is pre-ejaculate or pre-cum. Pre-cum can contain some sperm cells in it and cause pregnancy. And so again, if you're okay with some level of risk, would encourage you to consider that. But because of these reasons, it's not always the most effective method. The second method is the calendar method or tracking dates. Now, in biology class, for example, we studied that only on day 14 ovulation happens. But the reality is our bodies have a lot of variation. And so we will not always ovulate on the exact same date every single month, especially if you're having a period cycle which is not following a calendar or not exactly 1 month long. A lot of times our cycles tend to vary in length and can vary in length because of hormonal fluctuations, because of lifestyle changes, or if you have a condition that requires you to have menstruation which is not exactly an exact 28-day cycle. Very few people actually have a cycle that is exactly 28 days. And so the thing to remember here is that ovulation is firstly more of a window, and it's not enough to just track the dates of when you have menstruation and then counting the number of days after that. There's a couple of other things that people tend to track. So the first method is, or the first thing to track is the basal body temperature. So when you wake up in the morning, you want to check your body temperature and then literally graph it through the month and see, because your temperature tends to vary depending on where you are in the cycle. And that way you're able to figure out when you might be ovulating and when you might not be ovulating. And similarly, you can also track the nature of your cervical fluid. That means basically checking inside your vagina, what are the fluids present, what is the consistency throughout the cycle. Your cervical fluid can be of transparent or more fluid or more whitish, and it usually is indications of how fertile you are. And as you track all these three things, it's called the fertility awareness method. Some people like to use this because it doesn't require you to take an external, let's say, birth control pill or use an IUD, but some people find it to be a lot of work. And so would encourage you to do your own research as you embark on the journey of fertility awareness, but just want to make sure that we are not only anchoring on dates as the only method to make sure when we're ovulating or not.